There we go. Okay. Yesterday, we learned that every human being is put into this world for a purpose. And in order to realize this fact that we're in the world for a purpose, as we have to go out of our selfishness a little bit. We have to not take things at face value. At face value, it seems very clear that there's no reason really why we're here. We're just here, just here. You know, you just wake up in the morning and here you are. And you just have to eat and get along. And, you know, if you're lucky, you get some pleasure from the world. And that's it. You know, you're just here and you're just gone. And there's a lot of very great and deep philosophers that's what they say. And basically, that's what all of them say. That's what almost all of them say. And all the psychologists and psychiatrists and the philosophers, and they just say, you know, you just have to find a way to get along with the least amount of problems as possible. You know, avoid catastrophes, avoid global warming, avoid, you know, what is it, the corona, avoid peer pressure, avoid this. You should do whatever you want to, and whatever you feel, you should just do it and feel. You shouldn't have any conflicts in life, etc. That's what it seems that the world is about, but it's not. It's not. Judaism comes to tell everybody that no, we're here for a purpose, and the purpose is that we have challenges that we must meet, and that the rules of the game are set by the Creator Himself in the Torah. But it's a thing that it's not taken at face value. If you take the world at face value, you'll never understand this. That's why God gave the Torah. And even when we do have the Torah, so the Torah is telling us, what's it telling us? That we have to go against our nature often. Not always. Not always. We have to go, not necessarily what we want to do is good. But man is made in such a way that we can want to do what's good. So that's talking about going out of Egypt. Going out of Egypt, the Jewish people were put into Egypt in the same way that every human being is put into a body. And the Jewish people are also put into a body. In other words, Egypt means powers of nature that rule nature, that rule the world, that rule the world. And that's in each and every one of us. And we have to go out of these powers of nature to look at the world from the Creator's point of view, and a truly objective point of view. Objective point of view. Now the world is falling more and more into subjectivity. That I'm the boss, I am God, I decide, I create everything. I create my own reality. Whatever I want is good. No one can tell me what to do. You can't rule over me, right? I can do what I want. So as a result, everything becomes very cold and very superficial, right? There's no love. There's no, you don't feel the innerness of anything, just total selfishness. That's the world has now come to, like it was in Egypt. Egypt was a very decadent place. So it's not the same Egypt as it is today. But nevertheless, the word Egypt, not by accident, the word Egypt is the same word as limitations, Meitzarim. So it's false limitations that we have. We don't know our own potential. And that's supposed to be the idea of Moshiach, that he's going to reveal the potential of everybody. Good. So we talked about before that what happens by going out of Egypt? The person goes out of Egypt, goes out of his own limitations. He starts to love God. Why do you love God? Because God is creating you. A thing you would never dream of, but it's true. God is actually creating us. He's creating us, and he's enlivening us, and he's commanding us, and he's empowering us. And when you start to realize that everything I have and everything that I am, my very life and everything I have is just an amazing, incredible gift that God is giving me all the time, and that he wants me to use it in the most dynamic way possible. The more a person comes to really believe this idea, so the more challenges he has in life. First of all, he's challenged just by his own self, by his own outlook in life. You have to change it, and his own feelings and his own reactions to the world, etc. So when you feel that God is always demanding from you and helping you, and he's always with you, and he's incredibly kind, he's creating you, then that makes life a lot less, how do you say, bitter and small and what's the word for it? There's a good word for it. Mean. Oh, that's the word. Mean. It makes the world a lot less mean and cruel and a lot more meaningful. Takes away the meanness and puts the meaning in this. Let's see here. Okay, so we said that's going out of Egypt. Going out of Egypt means thinking about God, thinking about the Creator. Is there really such a thing? The Creator, and realizing that we are being created and we're being created for a purpose. All these things that I said, and the angels are screaming out to God because they really feel that God is creating them. And then we come to feel a little bit of this love. Says the Rebbe that everything we just finished saying, this is only talking about, let's see if we can get this over here, a pointer. This is talking about Bechinas Rotza. This is running to God, going out of Egypt. This is only for what's called the godly soul. Now, every Jew has a godly soul. What's that godly soul? Something like artistic people, they have an artistic soul. Right? It gives them ideas, it gives them feelings. Sometimes you see these artists, pianists or whatever, they just have tremendous sense of music, incredible sense of music. I mean, there's few that I'm very, impressed by tremendously. Not that I'm a big expert in it, but you just tell them to play anything. They can play from any composer. They have like a repertoire in their mind of like 1,000 complicated, piano pieces or violin pieces, tremendous, and it's all right there. They just have to sit for a couple of minutes, maybe a minute, and just sort of go over it in their mind, and all of a sudden there it is. They just have tremendous sense of music. There's people that have sense of sports. There's people that have sense of leadership. Some people have senses, right, of drawing, of speaking. Sense. Well, every Jew has a sense of God, a sense of the Creator. And because the Creator is not we haven't got a monopoly on the Creator. Exactly the opposite. The Creator is concealed from everybody. But every Jew feels deeply a connection to the Creator. It's concealed, most Jews. In fact, it's concealed almost in everybody. Every Jew, in fact, is concealed. And that's why we have Hasidut in order to reveal it. But that's called the godly soul. The godly soul is a sense of the Creator, a feeling that I am being created for a purpose, a feeling that God really gave and is giving the Torah and the commandments, and that they are holy, and that they're exciting, and that they're warm and beautiful and meaningful. So it says that's all that we talked about before is going out of Egypt. That's talking about refreeing the godly soul, this godly feeling. It's almost like a person, like we said before, that has a sense of music, but he's deaf. He has a beautiful sense of art, of drawing, but he's blind. The person has a tremendous sense of being able to speak, but he's mute. And all you have to do is just a little operation or something like that, or it could be the person is just a hypochondriac or whatever. He just thinks that he's blind. He thinks he's do a little thing. All of a sudden, it's revealed. He can see, wow, a whole new world of sight and pictures, and the whole new world of sounds is revealed to him. Okay, then he has to start to work on it. But at least doing the operation and revealing this sense of feeling God, that's going out of Egypt. Or in the musician revealing that he can see, that he can hear, suddenly he can hear. He's gone out of his limitations. And he was unaware of who he was. So every Jew has this sense of God. And that's what I said so many times before, that the Jewish people are the chosen people. God chose them to tell the whole rest of the world how much God loves them. To reveal to the whole rest of the world all the things that I previously said. That God is creating them, that God cares about them, and that God feeds them. God listens to all prayers. That's the whole idea of why it's forbidden idolatry, why Christianity, why it's forbidden these things. Even for the non-Jews, it's forbidden. Because it's not that they're going to get punished if they do it, but because it's totally unnecessary. So it's totally unnecessary. And you have to pray to the Creator, and it's ingratitude. God is creating, but people just don't know. And the Jews are supposed to reveal this. Okay. Shehi, this is this is when the godly soul goes out of its exile. Shehi, bebechinas galus, that the godly soul was in a way of exile inside of the limitations of the body, of the limitations of mechasim that cover over kamo, just like Paro. Like Paro says, I don't know God. Paro ruled the world, and he says, there's no such thing as God, there's just me. Same thing, us. We're inside of our bodies, we're inside of our natural soul, our natural tendencies, and our natural feeling is that there's no God, just like Paro. That's the Paro inside of each one of us. Like it says, God said, I will go with you to Egypt. I will take you out. That's what God said to Abraham. Huh? Abraham? No, I think God said this to Moses, I'm sorry. He said to Abraham something similar. Pakadati. This is what it says to Jacob. What said to Jacob? No, I'm sorry, afraid. Jacob. God said this to Yaakov. Don't be afraid of going into Egypt. Right, when there was a famine in the whole world, Yaakov did not know yet that what was going to happen. So God said to him, don't worry about it. You're going to go into Egypt, and I'm going to take you out. God said, I'm going to take you out either. Because Jacob didn't want to leave the land of Israel. He didn't want to leave the land of Israel. So God said, don't worry about it. I'm going to go down with you to Egypt, and I'm going to take you out. This is Jacob, this is referring to this godly soul we were talking about. Okay. That's the Jacob. Yaakov is Yud Akev. Yud is the first letter of God's name, one of God's names, but God's main name. And Akev means the heels. That God, that's the highest level of godliness. The first letter of God's name, which shows on a high level of godliness, comes down to the heels. Akev is the heels. Yaakov Chevel Nachalaso, like it says that Jacob is the rope of God's inheritance. That's the godly soul. It came from the highest place, the letter Yud of God's name, down to the Akev, down into this lowest possible physical world, in order to fix the world. Like it says, Vayera Yisrael, it's the Yad Gadola, that the Jewish people saw the Yad, the letter Yud, the Yud, Asher Asashem, that God made, the Yisrael, Bilavad, that the Jewish people, which is the godly soul, it alone saw. So when God took the Jewish people out of Egypt, he awakened this Jewish soul that they felt. But we see that it did not permeate into their natural personality. All the Jewish people, like it says, the Jewish people, they rose up in God's thought. So Yisrael, the letters of Yisrael is Li Rosh, to me is the head. The Jewish people alone, the Yisrael, they alone saw the big miracles, it said. So what does it mean? When first you go into synagogue, the Jewish people go to synagogue, right? You're supposed to go every day. So you go once in the morning. 3 times, really, there's 3 prayers. You go to the synagogue. Now, in the synagogue, you're separated from the world. You're not supposed to really have anything to do with the world in the synagogue. That's why men and women do not pray together. Because you don't want to have anything that reminds you of anything to do with the world when you're in the synagogue. It's supposed to be a place where it's conducive to think about God and to pray to God and to sing out to God and to talk about God. It's also a meeting place, etc. For the main thing there is that you're supposed to be secluded from the world. That's the idea, right? There's no music, there's no external, music coming out in the time of prayer to disturb you. So you pray to God, you think about God. You've gone out of Egypt. You've gone out of the world. That's what the synagogue is supposed to be. You've gone out of the world. You know, no connection to the world. You're only thinking about God. But you have to leave the synagogue. After you finish praying, you go out into the world. What are you going to do then? So that's a different thing. There were these Jews that said, this is the beginning of in Germany especially, of the Enlightenment movement, which tried to destroy Judaism. And it said you can be a Jew in your house and a man in the street. A Jew in your house, a Yehudi bebeitecha ba'adam betzeitecha. And in other words, when you're in your house, you're alone, do whatever you want to. When you go on the street, you have to act like everybody else. because and God should be happy you're at least doing something in your house. Like not everybody is. It says the Rebbe, that's exactly the opposite of Judaism. The whole point of Judaism is to fix up the world, to make the world a godly place, not to make God worldly, not to make up excuses. But how are you going to do that? You go into the world, you have to have a feeling in your day-to-day life about God. He says that's the whole idea of, first of all, going out of Egypt. That's like what you do when you're in the synagogue. Like like it says in Kriya Shema, Bechinas Ratzai, going out of Egypt. Like we said, loving God. I love you, God. Right? That's all there is. Eino Elo Nefesh Elokis. It's only to the godly soul alone. Although Nefesh Bahamis, but then there's what's called your natural soul, your natural, real self. He wants to eat. He just wants to eat. The animal soul does not care about what type of food it is. The animal soul doesn't care if it has to be tasty and good. How do you put the godly soul into the animal soul? Well, first of all, you have the commandments, you have different things, but what about your heart? What's your heart? In order to accept the Torah, this is revealed will of God in the world, in order to get these commandments and all of these, the Torah, to incorporate it into your day-to-day life, to know what you should do outside. So that took 50 days. They left Egypt. Only 50 days later did they receive the Torah. So when they left Egypt, they were all fired up. They knew God took them out. God split the sea, for them. And then God was raining manna from heaven, right, for them. So things were going pretty good, when they left Egypt. They got water from a rock. But now everything is, God is doing everything. What about me? What am I going to do? But as soon as you left the Jews alone, what did they say? Let's go back to Egypt. But we don't feel it. Like there's some people like this when they get out of prison. They don't know what to do. They were in prison for 40 years, whatever. But they don't know what to do when they get out. They want to go back to prison. So in order for the Jews to receive the Torah, so that they could actually begin fixing up the world, so there has to be somehow or other a surrender, not just of the godly, awakening of the godly soul, there has to be also a surrender of the natural soul to the godly soul also. Or let's take our example that we gave before of the pianist, right? So he was deaf. So first of all, they do an operation on him or whatever it is, and he starts to hear. That's like going out of Egypt. No, now he's not a pianist yet, though. He's got all the ideas in his mind. He hears music. He loves it. It's just fantastic. He does this. But in order for him to be a pianist, he has to really work at it. The same thing the Jewish people. Their feeling of the Creator, the awareness of the Creator was awakened. But now they have to utilize it. They have to put it into their day-to-day life. They have to make the world a beautiful place. How are they going to do that? There's this conflict between what their godly soul tells them to do and what their natural, true self says what to do. I want to eat, I want to sleep, there's nice looking things in the world. Why can't I take part of it? Right? Why not just be an animal? Just do it. I know. So then now, how do we have to refine? How do the Jews refine their natural traits and their natural urges, their natural sensitivities? Al yedei hanafat OMER. This is by means of what's called lifting up the OMER. We said the OMER was a bunch of barley. And Sfirat OMER, and counting the OMER. The barley, they only lifted up when they arrived in the land of Israel, because they didn't have any barley when they were in the desert. But counting the OMER, this is that they counted the 50 days to get from Egypt, the 50 days from Egypt to receiving the Torah. So it says, okay, but when they got into the land of Israel, they really did the commandment. It began by raising up this bundle of barley. It says, "Heinif et OMER." Heinif means to lift up the barley. Lifnei Hashem. L'ritzonechem mimachrat haShabbos. That's what the sentence says, that you have to lift up this barley to your will. The day after Shabbat, the Kohen should lift it up. Okay, what was the Kohen? The OMER, this was from Saori, and this was from barley. What is barley? Barley is like very rough. It's a very rough type of of a grain. It's a barley. This is animal food. And similarly, Lamaila above, Yesh Gamkein, and there is also is also this animal. We have to refine the animal. What's the animal? Remember we said that in the the chariot that Ezekiel saw and that Isaiah saw, they saw this chariot, God's throne they saw, and on it there was the face of the lion on the right and the face of the ox was on the left. This is the lion, this lion and ox, this was the source of our natural soul. The natural soul is, another word for natural soul is me. My desires, my thoughts, my plans, my fears, my anxieties, my needs. This is all called, this comes down to, this is the spiritual source, the spiritual source for our, what's called natural self. Like it says, like it says, Aliyam, Shasa Shlomo, like it says, there's this big laver that King Solomon made in the first temple. And it said it stood on this stand, and the stand was right. It was really 4 sides to the stand, and each one of these 4 sides was 3 oxes. It was 3 statues of oxen, I guess. And there was a big laver on top of it, and the Kohanim would wash in the morning their hands and feet from this. So it says on this laver, of course, everything King Solomon made in the Holy Temple was according to the upper worlds. It was according to these all mysteries. So what was this 12 oxes? He had to put the laver on 12 oxes. It said it's still on 12 oxes. And it was 3 of them were facing north, 3 facing east, 3 facing west. This is corresponding to the upper chariot of God and the sea, this big laver that was on top of them. This is Yama Elyon. This is what's called the Behema Rabbah. This is called the great animal. This is one of the names of God, Ban. Ban. If you take the name of God, which is Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav Hey, just add up those letters, Yud and Hey, and Vav and Hey, it's 26. Yud is 10, 2 Heys is 5, and 5 is another 10, and Vav is 6, is 26. But you can fill up those letters phonetically. For instance, Yud, you fill up phonetically Yud, Vav, Daled. So it comes out to be 10. So there's different ways of filling out this name of God, and one of them comes out to be 52. That's the name Ban, and that's the gematria of the word Behema, animal. Shehu shores, this is the source. It says this is the source of this big animal that's it's called the name of Ban. This is the source of the chariot of God that it says of the lion and the ox, and etc. That's why by the way, why the Jewish people worship the golden calf. Because the sorcerers, it says that the mixed multitude, they made this golden calf, and they said, this is the God that took you out of Egypt, right? The first of the 10 commandments is you can only worship the God that took the Jews out of Egypt, right? That's the first of the 10 commandments. I am God that took you out of Egypt. Even though it doesn't say it in a commandment way, but it is a commandment. I am God means you must believe in God, and only the God that took the Jews out of Egypt. You have to believe it. So when the Jews left Egypt, it says the sea split, and they saw all these spiritual levels, they all split also, and they saw this big ox, that's this big ox he's talking, Behema Rabbah. They saw this big ox, and they saw that this was the main the feature of the upper chariot of God, an ox. They made a calf, and they said, this is the God that took you out of Egypt. Good trick. It really worked. It really worked. All the Jews worshiped the golden calf, either actually or passively, or actively, passively. Merkava, this chariot we said before, this is the source. This is the source of the animal. Seora, this barley, this is also the letters of Shi'ur Hey. This is Shi'ur, the measure of Hey, the last letter of God's name. This is raising up the last letter of God's name, which is this world, raising this up, Mavarim and Nichlalim, and this becomes included in this, we call the big animal, that's the source of the source, Right? As we said, the immediate source of all the animal forces in the world, including our animal soul, is from the chariot. And the source of this chariot comes from even higher. That's this Behema Rabbah. It says the whole thing depends on what the Jews do. God made this temple in the world and the Jews in it because the Jews have two qualities that don't, that are not possessed by any of the upper worlds. And therefore, the whole entire business depends on us. What are the two qualities we have? Number one, all the Jews, they're the sons of God. They come from the highest essence of God. Number two, the Jews are put into the lowest of lowest places, which the lowest of lowest places is our free will. We can use our free will to go down much lower than the animals. The animals do what they're supposed to do. When a Jew uses his free will to do what God wants, that's a big novelty. And God decided when he created the world that that's the whole name of the game. Jews using their free will to make the right choices, to serve God. That's what God did. Why this has an effect on God is totally incomprehensible, but that's what God decided. That's also totally incomprehensible. God decided things and he cares about us. But that's the fact. The fact is that God, it is very important to God that the Jews should make the right choices. Very important. And when this happens, it makes the whole world a good place, the way the world is supposed to be, a new place. Like it was when God created it, even better with Adam, before he ate from the tree. Okay, so now the Rebbe is telling us what to do. What do we have to do? We have to what's called counting the OMER. First of all, beginning, you take this barley, which is animal food, and you elevate it. That's the whole idea of making the right choices and elevating the world instead of letting the world pull us down. There are some angels that are totally negated to God all the time. There's angels which are called Yotzer Meshartim. There's angels which burn up to God, and God creates them all the time. There's angels which they are totally negated in every day. They're swallowed up in godliness, and this big, we said this big animal we talked about, this behema, kamo, just like food, like this barley that we said, that it's swallowed up into the big animal, this aspect of God which is called ban, this in the gematria of God, which is the same numerical value as animal, this name of God. So what we do down here, this actually affects through this level of godliness. And so there's certain angels that because of what we do here in this world, so this gives the angels power, and they are burning up to God all the time. Those are the angels just called Asher Yotzartim. That God, you commanded them. Yotzer Meshartav, Yosher Meshartim. That God makes these servants. These are the angels. Then this angel was called Asher Meshartav. They always serve God constantly. The angel Mechoel. Anyway, there's a lot. Like there's the fish in the sea, and we don't see any of them. There's big whales and all sorts of squids and who knows what there are. So the same thing, there's angels. And things, there's many more angels than there are squids, but there's infinite number of angels. So there's all sorts of things going on in these spiritual worlds, and the spiritual worlds are right here. We just don't see them. They say, oh, that's what it means, but nevertheless, we don't have to see them. When we do what God wants, this elevates even all of the upper worlds by means of the OMER. That goes before God, Lamaila, above the name of God. That's what it means, Mamacha Shabbos. That's what it means. We have to start counting from the day after Shabbat. Even though it's not so, we don't count after the Shabbat. Why does it say in the Torah we count after Shabbat? We really count after Passover. Why? The Tzedukim said that it's the first Shabbat after Passover, but it's not so. They just took the Torah literally. The fact of the matter is God wants us to like this year, for instance, we start counting the OMER after Passover. So we started counting it on what, Friday. And according to what it says in the Torah, we should count it after Saturday, but it's not so. But we don't count it after Yom Tov. Why? Because this is the Shula Maila B'chinet Shabbat. But Dailav, and in other words, we have to, after the level of Shabbat, which that's the inclusion in the upper worlds, then we start to work from below to above. Okay, so that's beginning. So first of all, we went out of Egypt. What does it mean we went out of Egypt? We start thinking about God. That's going out of Egypt. We think about God. We get excited about God. That's going out of Egypt. Step number one. Step number two, you have to bring the OMER. What's bringing the OMER? Thinking, listen, I have to get my act together. I have to put my natural desires and my natural personality in sync with my godly desires, right? I have to start, how do you say, unifying what I want to do with what I know is what's right, right? With what I know what's right. That's called lifting up the OMER, making this decision that I am going to start doing what the Creator wants, saying what the Creator wants, thinking what the Creator wants, and even trying to feel what the Creator wants all the time. And it's a long process. By means of this, afterwards, you have to do spirit OMER. You have to count the OMER. This counting the OMER, this is Hamshachos drawing down these makifim from a Bible. This draws down a tremendously high level. When you actually start to serve the Creator of the universe, it seems that you're not making any progress at all. And it seems exactly the opposite, that you're getting absolutely nothing done. You're going against your nature. You're going against your own nature. That's a very uncomfortable feeling. You have to keep reassuring yourself that I'm doing the right thing. Right? It's like the alcoholic that he stops drinking. It's like very uncomfortable for him. He just has to always assure himself, I'm doing the right thing. This is a good thing. I don't want to be an animal anymore. I want to start being a human being. That goes from below to above. That draws down what's called makifim. It draws down a surrounding aspect of God. Just the same way as you force yourself from an aspect that surrounds you, right? Let's take the example of the alcoholic. So the alcoholic, he really wants to drink, and he's really good at it. You know, he goes to the bar and he's got his friends over there, and he knows how to, the jokes, whatever he makes over there. And he's got his friends. He really wants to go out to the drink, and he feels good when he gets drunk. He doesn't think about his problems anymore. Doesn't think about this, but he has to say, he gets to the point where he says, no, what I'm doing is wrong. I have to work on myself. I have to fix myself. Very difficult thing to do. Every single day he has to count. There's a lot of these people, that they were addicted to drugs or to this, and they mark how many days. I'm marking, this is the second year that I've stopped drinking. This is the third year. They say, oh, that's what it means, Hayom Yom Aleph. That's what it means. We have to count the Omer every day. We're going out of our own natural desires and starting to think more and more, what does God want me to do here? What does God want me to do? This is so the first day of counting the Omer. How many days do we count? We count 50 days, right? Well, not exactly. Even though it says in the Torah you're supposed to count 50 days, but in fact, we don't count 50. In fact, we count 49 days. 49 is 7 times 7. 7 happens to be that there's 7 emotional attributes in every soul. This corresponds also to God's 7 emotional attributes. That's what it says that man is made in the image of God. And each one of these 7 attributes, love, the assertiveness, love, beauty, balance, right, withholding, giving, all these different aspects of our personality, mostly of our emotions. Each one of those 7 also contains 7. And that's what the counting of the Omer is to refine each one of the 7 aspects of each of our 7 attributes. Fixing up how we love, what we love, refining our love for the Creator, removing our love from selfishness, selfish love, and starting to love the Creator. Doing same thing with fear, to fear the Creator, to use our fear for positive things. Or assertiveness, I want to call it, it's gavura, beauty, our goals, what we're going for, what our purpose in life, what keeps us balanced in life. We use it for the Creator. And there's 7 aspects of each one of these. That's what we say, Yom Yom Omer. That's what we count every day. The first day of the Omer, the first 7, that's all 7 aspects of Chesed, of God's love, and our love to Him. Like it says, Yom Mitzvah Hashem Chazo, namely the upper God's kindness, God's kindness to draw down when we fix up our personality, or we even try, so God helps us from above. Milamayla Maila. And this draws us down to the OMER, we said, to the animal food, to the animal side of us, in order that we shall be bittul ratzon min nefesh habahamis, so that we should surrender our desire to God. Like the piano player, like little by little, he gets his fingers, that his fingers work, and they go according to his sense of music, a sense of beauty, a sense of, so also we can get our life in tune with our sense of what God is. And this is speaking to everyone, but it has to be the Jews have to do it first. Because if the Jews don't do it first, then nobody's going to do it, right? No one's going to do it. The Jewish people, we're not the choice people. We're not choice. We're not better than everybody else. We're not the choice people. We're the chosen people. God just chose us. Why he chose us, I don't know. Why he chose us and he didn't choose, who knows, the Mexicans or the Europeans or the Slavs. I have no idea why. And the fact is, it doesn't make any sense. Makes it, but the fact is so. God chose the Jews, and Jews have this aspect inside of themselves. That's for the Jews. It says the Jews are smart people. Why are they smart? Because God gave us the Torah. He just chose us, gave us the Torah. In order to understand the Torah, you have to have smarts. You have to have intelligence. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every Jew is smarter than everybody else, and no one else is smarter than every Jew. I guarantee you there's people who are as smart as the Jews are, 100%. Right? And I guarantee you there's a lot of Jews that are not smart at all. You look at the Israeli government, you can see. That's what it means. In order that there will be negated the will to draw down. So when we start to fix ourselves up, God helps us. What does it mean to draw down this ray of godliness? The surrounding aspect of God, that comes from this aspect of Shabbat, after this Shabbat, from a tremendously high level to you. Below, to transform the animal soul also, that it also will be negated. Your will be negated to the will of the Creator. Good. Let's stop this, and we will. Now tomorrow is going to be a holiday, and Thursday we'll see. No, the Thursday is a holiday for you, so there's no purpose in me giving a class. But Friday, God willing, I will give a class. But we're going to learn now also the Yom Yom. Let's go. Just stop the share for 1 second. Here we go, and stop the recording.